Yep.
Being noon, let's call a meeting to order. We'll look for approval of minutes of the previous meeting back in June. Anybody got any questions or comments or corrections? Hearing none, we'll take a motion to approve.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Financial report is in there. Is there any questions anybody's got on that for Nicholas? Is there?
I looked through it, everything seems normal. Loans are being paid off, so that's good. No issues there.
Okay.
Everybody's current even with all that's going on?
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Any other questions for him? Motion to approve that. If we need, do we need a motion to approve that?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we'll go on next to our EDA business survey. Last meeting, we had asked Nicholas to send out and see what people needed from EDA.
Yeah, so, I reached out to around 150 businesses and got around 70 responses. You can see there, these are the questions that I asked. Pretty straightforward. One that people kind of had trouble answering was, what do the next 12 months look like? Some are like, well, a lot of like the trades businesses were like, it looks, normal. They were pretty busy at the point that I phoned them. But for other businesses like restaurants and those that really deal with like in-person customer service, so it could be like your chiropractor or your restaurant, the next 12 months look uncertain. It really varies based on, what this COVID situation is going to be like. If some staff get COVID, or if the state shuts down those in-person businesses again because there's a rise in cases. So overall, businesses were really appreciative of the effort. Some businesses didn't know what the EDA was, so that was good to tell them, and also tell them about some of the programs. I think we've got some interest, and I expect some facade improvement applications coming up next month, due to the outreach and businesses learning about the programs. Overall, I think, like I said before, trades businesses seem to have seen a little dip in business, in March and April. But once people got comfortable with working in and around homes, getting their employees back to work, they seem to have, gotten as busy as they normally would expect to be. Where businesses seem to be suffering, it's those that were affected by Executive Order 20-4 and 20-8. So that's like your restaurants, bars, indoor recreation, spas, gyms, salons, any kind of on-premise transaction type business seem to be suffering. Mostly for financial assistance. They want grants and forgivable loans. And we know that, some of those are available, but they're few and far between compared to, lower interest loans that aren't forgivable. So they expressed that to me. Most businesses seem to be really on top of the current relief offerings, which is good. They're well educated in that respect. But yeah, like I just said, they're not as interested in kind of lower interest rate loans. They kind of want grant monies with low to no stipulations, or forgivable loans that if they're used in the right way, that they're forgiven. So that's kind of what my key takeaways from the business outreach survey were. And I've included all of the businesses that I got in touch with, and I organized them by business type, because I thought that's where I saw the trend was, businesses of the same type kind of had the same responses. So
Thank you. Small input in there.
Okay, we'll move next on to the business facade improvement grants.
Okay, so we've got 3 things to go through here. We got an application from Stage by Stage. They're looking to do a new sign and vinyl decal on the front entryway. The total project cost is estimated to be $703, so the match they've requested is $350. Then we've got Legion 333 reimbursement request. They just finished their concrete pad. Originally, they were going to include the cost of the roof. I'm sure if you've driven by, it's hard to miss. But I guess the concrete work was over $4,000, and so they just submitted that because that maxed out their grant amount. And then Daniel Plaza completed their landscaping in the parking lot, so they submitted a request for $1,380. And you'll see the images in the packet as well as proof of payment to contracted.
So we'll have to probably do these one by one.
Yeah.
So we can get a, is there any more discussion on the stage by stage application? Take a motion.
Move to approve.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, if you wanna take care of that, Nicholas. Next on to the Legion 333 reimbursement. Anybody got any more questions on that, or?
It looks great.
Oh, it's nice.
It looks really nice. Well, with that, I would take a motion to approve that so we can pay them.
So moved.
Okay, a motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. And then down to the Daniels Plaza. Is there any questions on that one?
That was landscaping, right?
That was landscaping,
Yeah.
yes.
That was good too.
That looks really nice. So, if there's no questions for that, we'll take a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you, everybody. Next, we will go to the 2021 budget.
So Jim and I looked over the budget, and we made a couple changes from some of the funds that, looking in the past 2 years, haven't really been utilized too much, and then moving them towards other things like advertising. See, what else did we? I don't have my original notes with me, but.
Sure, I mean, you could see some of the adjustments there, but advertising was a big part of what we wanted to talk about. This included sheet doesn't have some of the changes that we had in the write-ups, but, you know, I think a lot of what we're seeing is that we have different services and businesses that are available, they're just, people aren't as aware of them, you know, and trying to put the focus on making sure that people know what's here seemed to be a big part of what we're making in terms of our budget adjustments.
Am I missing, where is the advertising?
So I think.
343, but there's nothing.
I think
That's
you
what
might have,
okay,
I think
that's
you
what
might
I-
have, I think you may have had the wrong sheet put in.
Right,
the
yeah.
Okay, that's what I was
I
looking
got
at, you
the
said you were
old
gonna do it, and I'm like, well, mine says blank, am I?
Oh.
So I thought maybe there was another one on there that I wasn't seeing, that's why.
Mm-hmm.
No, this is the one I got on my desk, but I realize it doesn't have some of the changes in it.
So we'll send out an amended
Yeah,
one
Thank
to
you.
you. Try
Sorry
and
about
dig
that.
up that sheet and we'll get that
Yeah.
scanned in for
So we
them.
can have some more to look at and see what we're,
Yeah.
I wonder if I've got it.
stick my pen in, no, not making my mind like I thought it was here.
Yeah.
How much were you thinking about for advertising for the proposed budget? Is there like a dollar figure, or?
You know, off the top of my head, I couldn't tell you exactly what it was. That was part of the reason we wanted to bring this to you today, was to see what your feedback was. And I mean, we could still do that, obviously. You can see what was allocated this year. You know, what are you thinking in terms of what your priorities are for next year? Obviously, that's what we want to try and encompass. You know, just from me seeing certain things, advertising seemed like it was an area which we probably would wanna increase. I know that I've talked to Kathy a little bit at the chamber too, regarding, you know, what the chamber's efforts are gonna be for next year for the Main Street, simply because we know that that's gonna be impacted, by the likely closure of 57, I don't know how long it'll take, but that area will be impacted, you know, significantly. And so making sure that the signage and things like that are made appropriately, I don't know what they're, you know, allocating in their own budget, but I think we wanna try and backstop whatever their efforts are as much as possible too. Because people will still be able to get down there, it's just gonna be more difficult. So making sure that there's signage, making sure that people know, no, we're not closed, we're still open, those are the kinda ads that I think we're looking at running, so.
And that was something else that some of the businesses brought up in the survey, is that they wanna see more promotion of local businesses, and so there might be some opportunities there.
Yeah, and a lot of this is gonna be in collaboration with the chamber, so I think, you know, later this fall, we wanna really coordinate with them, but that's kind of what we're hoping to do, is shift it out of some of these areas where it hasn't been used historically into areas where it's more useful. You know, a good example would be legal fees. You know, right now, we don't expect to see a lot of additional costs in the EDA department, at least when it comes to legal fees, hopefully. You know, you could see last year, they spent about $13.50. So, I mean, that's an area where some money could be shifted out of legal fees into advertising, and I think that's kind of what we did. As I said, I don't have those sheets right in front of myself either here, but I guess I have it over there for you. But yeah, I think that's kind of what we're looking at. And then there is an increase, obviously, we know CEDA's contract is, it's gonna be increasing next year as well, so.
I see you got some there too, like staff meetings and conferences.
Mhm.
You know, we allocate 500 and you look, use 16. So, you know,
Yeah.
that's a potential.
Well, and you could see from 2 years ago, that was already brought down from 2,500. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, part of it is also if there's something that we need to be going to, for example, staff meetings and conferences, you know, when we come to marketing our community, I mean, are there
Oh.
places we should be going really that we're not right now? Now, this year is kind of a bad year because everything's canceled, you know, whatever trade shows or whatever sort of functions are canceled, but, I mean, are there places that, you know, Nicholas or myself or board members need to be going to learn more about, how to sell the community, to folks? I mean, that's kind of what we could use some of those monies for as well.
Okay.
Up on the top under, I mean, I take the full-time employees is just our, probably shared, is that our share towards the administrator, or what? I guess
Yeah, I would
so we have a
imagine
CEDA
that's probably part of what it is. I don't know if maybe part of Nancy's salary may come out of that too, for finding the time she does for prepping documents and things like that, but I would imagine that's what it is.
Okay, 'cause I was just noticing we're typically at about 50% there.
Yeah, I mean, part of it is, if you look at the 2008 budget, there was 40,000 allocated from there, so you've seen the transition when you guys went into the CEDA contract from when they had staff previously that
Right.
was actually being utilized, so that number's been reduced dramatically. So, yeah, we could definitely take a look at that as well.
Yeah, we'll send out the updated one that we had worked on.
Mhm.
Right. Well, so, we'll discuss that more at the next meeting, or when
Yep.
there's a little more numbers in there,
Sure.
so. We'll move next to the coordinator's report.
Okay, so EDA strategic plan, I figured now that the survey is being completed and we have a better idea of the impact on the local economy, that's something that maybe we can revisit, for discussion, once I just get through this coordinator's report. We were awarded the 2020 Trail Connections grant. Documents are being organized by the city engineer to move forward with the grant agreement before we can start work on that project. But Tom has the application that we sent in, so if you're interested in looking at the maps or anything like that, he can just pass that along to you. So that's pretty good news, and I guess we'll start looking at, you know, where we'll apply for next year. So hopefully we can continue some success with that program. The EDA webpage, I've made some of the updates, as suggested at the last meeting. You'll notice if you go to the webpage that the links to resources are now at the top of the page rather than the bottom, and I'll continue to update some of the resources as those change. we just submitted a grant to the Minnesota Historical Society for the Historic Works Progress Administration wall. That grant's for $10,000 to help offset the cost of the restoration for the wall. We should hope to hear that in about 8 weeks' time. And I believe work will start next summer.
If approved by the council.
If approved by the council, yeah. I've been speaking with my CETA colleagues about Casson-Manderville collaboration between the EDAs. Right now, they're transitioning some of the EDA staff there. A different CETA person will be working there. So they've identified a date, October 1st, as a possible joint meeting. So if that works for you, I'll send out an email just asking what people's availability for that. But the meeting, we talked about, you know, where we can possibly collaborate with the Manorville EDA on items such as, you know, marketing. Maybe we do a joint marketing video where we market Manorville's historic charm along with Casson's, you know, amenities and businesses, so.
Does Manderville have an EDA?
Yes.
And they all, it seems that there's so much with Manderville that's CETA, which isn't that county?
So we got the county contract and Manderville contract as well.
So do we ever, does CETA ever get all of the cities in Dodge County together? I mean, I noticed that CETA does a lot of work in Stewartville.
Mm-hmm.
So when it says county, does that mean Dodge County? Or what's that mean?
Well, so CETA's got contracts in West Concord, Claremont, Casson, Manorville, Hayfield, and Dodge County, the government of Dodge County. So I currently have West Concord, Claremont, Casson, and Dodge County, and then I got 2 other colleagues in Hayfield and Manorville.
That CETA doesn't work with Stewartville then?
They do.
Stewartville's not Dodge County,
No.
it's all
That's what I was thinking.
Right.
Yeah.
So CETA does as many as they can in southeast Minnesota.
Yeah.
So it's
It's a
really
service.
not
It's a
our
contract.
county EDA?
No.
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 It
But they
is-
work for the county. CETA is employed by the county, just
Yeah.
like
Mhm.
they have a contract, just like we do with them.
Okay.
So that's why, so like Nicholas said, they cover quite a few
So
towns.
they're contracted by Olmsted County?
No.
Dodge County.
Well,
But then some cities in Olmsted County hire them too.
Okay, so cities around the state of Minnesota may hire the Dodge County?
No.
No,
No,
CETA.
not Dodge County.
It's not Dodge-
CETA is a
The
separate
county.
501c3. So CETA gets hired for contract services as a
And the C
501c3
stands
entity.
for county.
Community.
Community economic.
Stands for
Yeah, it's not,
community.
doesn't stand for EDA, it stands for
Okay.
Community Economic Development Associates.
Community,
So we're a group
okay.
of consultants in
Okay.
different governments.
That's what I didn't understand.
Right.
'Cause I thought, when they had that meeting in Manderville, I thought, I really wanted to go, but I couldn't.
Mhm.
And I thought, gee, that would be nice for all of us to attend, since it was CETA, which I thought was county.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, I'll be working with the new contract there to, you know, figure out the finer details, but I'll send an email out seeing if this date works. And then we'll work on finding a location, and then we'll kind of set up a meeting structure of, we talked about, you know, the strengths and weaknesses of each other's towns, get the board members discussing with each other, and figure out ways where we can complement each other in certain projects and maybe cost share as well. I toured the Dodge County Independent Building, which is owned by Ed and Tina Butler. The building has 4 upstairs apartments, the main floor apartment, which is a flexible space, and main floor offices. So the Dodge County Independent is looking to scale down their size, and so Ed and Tina are thinking of changing the space in the building. They were, the kind of top item that they'd like to look into is a co-working space, but then they would also be interested in a brewery, so, yeah. So they've asked me to kind of help look into what a business plan would look like for, the space, for a co-working space in the building, with the Dodge County Independent as an anchor tenant. I think that's where I'd like to keep, that relationship for now is just, gathering, collecting, and synthesizing information for them so that they can move forward with it. And it really depends on the status of the Dodge County Independent, whether the publisher will be, managing the space or if it will be, a separately managed space. One thing that I would like to do is, I've talked to some of my CETA colleagues, and they have varying levels of success with co-working spaces in communities in southeastern Minnesota. So with that list of businesses that I've, formulated, we've got addresses. So I was thinking, why don't I email out the chamber and a survey and see who would want to use a co-working space? But those chamber members are already established with office spaces, so they're probably not the clientele you're looking for. So perhaps it's residentially operated businesses. So with that active business directory, we can look at residential addresses for businesses registered to those. Send a mail out form asking them to fill out a survey on whether they would use a co-working space or not, as offices, and then we can determine a demand, and that can help Ed and Tina Butler figure out whether to move forward with the co-working space or find a different type of business that could occupy that spot. So that's kind of where I'm at with that, and I'm just curious what the board thinks as well.
Are there apartments occupied?
No, they need to be renovated and remodeled, but they own the building outright, so I think they've got the capital to do that. But their priority right now is changing the downstairs main floor space.
Sorry, this Chaotic Good Brewing Company, they're 601 3rd Ave, that's, I'm thinking of that as being kind of residential, is that?
So, yep, it is that was, I think later last year. He just started his business, so right now he's building a shed for his brewery operations. His long-term goal is to have like a beer hall in downtown Casson, but right now he hasn't even started production. He's just building his shed, and I think he's got a conditional use permit for on-site sale once he, is producing. So, that's somebody, if they decide to move forward with a co-working space and it doesn't pan out in a year or two, maybe they can approach Chaotic Good Brewing and say, would you like to partner on a beer hall? So there's definitely local options, and, if they want, they could, reach out to breweries in Rochester and say, do you want to open a second location in a larger small town right outside of Rochester? So there are different options that they could go if they chose that direction as well.
Okay. I think, on the, so yeah, I guess on like the co-working space, I know like probably a year and a half ago, we were talking about some of the different commercial programming offerings, and we had settled on the facade improvement grant. We had talked about doing I called it the expansion pack, but it was basically like you help buy out, you basically like provide towards credits for like legal, marketing, and accounting services for them to work toward, like for some of like the professional services needed for getting their business in order. There were some other, I think like late yesterday I'd sent an email about with kind of like that original stuff in it, but there were kind of a few different little things that we had considered a while ago, I guess, and I wasn't sure if we wanted to revisit that if we're trying to prioritize kind of the entrepreneurial startup co-working space type stuff.
Well, I think one of them you brought up was, finance classes.
Yeah.
You know, and I think Mr. Gasner, I know he did some in Blue Earth too when I was there, we brought him in, and I think that's certainly something the EDA could take a look at, would be helping to pay for, you know, succession planning, or, you know, sort of classes along those lines, if we feel like the, business community is actually interested in that. You know, succession planning is always an issue, in smaller towns, because you wanna turn your business over to somebody, you know, you don't wanna just close the doors, so. Yeah, I think that one for sure is something we could take a look at, and then you mentioned the rent reimbursement, and if there's a way to model that, that's certainly something we could take a look at too. The purchase credits towards county, you know, I'm not sure how that would work. You know, I know I talked with Nicholas about that yesterday, and the issue with, even with, I think you mentioned like buying like, what do we get, gift cards or something like that. Problem is, which businesses do you select to use?
Yeah.
You know, and how do you pick the
Right.
ones that you're gonna support with that
Right.
program or not?
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah, the gift cards was a different, that was on like COVID
Yeah.
side,
But
but
just
yeah,
going
'cause
through
I
the
don't,
issues you brought
I don't
up
know if
today.
accountants bring up, offer gift cards, but, you could, maybe a new venture for you.
Yeah, we got April and July, so I might not hear you.
But I think, yeah, I guess my thought as far as doing the gift card offerings though was, yeah, I mean, pretty much just pick an industry and, I mean, yeah, buy out in approximately equal amounts across the board, depending on whatever amount of funding you wanna do for COVID relief, get dollars so that they do something, you know, so that they have something, but
Sure.
ultimately, yeah, it's a bunch of logistical questions.
Well, and that, maybe it ties into like, continuing the strategic planning discussion where, you know, we focus on bringing in some of those classes, or think about like a, you know, a startup grant for businesses. Those are just some items to consider.
So as far as the co-working space and then using the business directory that you have to identify people and say, hey, no, these are the things that are available.
Right.
Will we then take that same list and look for anybody who, like people just bought the Shopko building, they've got places, you know, would you try to find
Right.
everybody who's got vacancies available and say, hey, here's an inventory, I mean, we notice you have a business out of your home, if you're ever looking for something in
Well,
town.
and it could maybe be questions along the lines of, are you looking for additional space for your business? Is that, you know, do you want an office space or do you want a retail space? And then try to connect them with the
Yeah, I think the goal there would be to try and take people in that next step in their business,
Right.
you know, cycle and say, okay, you've been successful there. You probably don't need it every day, but maybe once a week do you have like a professional meeting where you wanna meet your vendor or you wanna meet your clients here at an office as opposed to in your garage, you know, and then the different day somebody else comes and uses that space, you know, or in the afternoon or something like that, you know, so. But I mean, once again, part of it comes back to how do we wanna advertise, and, you know, do we wanna put money into saying, hey, we've got room here at the Shopko building and come on down, you know, I'm sure that those property owners are gonna be doing the same thing, you know, they're gonna be pushing it, cause they wanna fill their spaces, so.
Yeah, and I guess, you know, if we did the mail-out survey to residentially located businesses, there would be a cost associated with that. You know, just the cost of printing, which I'm sure we can print out here, so it's kind of incorporated. And then postage, which is like, what, 50 cents a letter?
Can we get a bulk? Doesn't the city have bulk anyway?
Yeah, so we could, I mean, it wouldn't be, I don't think it would be more than $100 to reach, you know, every residential business in town, so. Yeah, it's something I can work on is a survey of the residentially owned businesses and what their future needs might be, and then we can identify where maybe there is a desire for co-working space, or connect them with the existing opportunities, so. You know, if somebody was like, I'm ready to start my beer hall, you know, connect them with Misplaced Magnolias owners, so.
Is the bakery opening?
Yeah, that's a good question. Have you
Yeah.
got any updates on that?
I talked to Adalberto about a week and a half ago. I think he's ready to go, he's just waiting on an inspection.
Did they need facade grants or anything like that to update their sign?
I had shared that with
They
him.
want to take their Jimmy's Pizza sign down.
Right.
Yeah, I shared that program with him, because it's obviously a perfect project for the program, so. I can get in touch with him again and see where status is and tell him about the program.
You can cross off 232 here in Utah. They use our address,
Oh, okay.
but.
Yeah, and that was something that I ran into during the business surveys. Some of the businesses might be registered in town, but they operate elsewhere.
Yeah.
How did you find all these?
So I, got a list from the Secretary of State of all Minnesota active businesses. And it kind of ranges, like, they might have last registered, I think, like 6 years ago, so some of them are out of date. And then I broke it down by zip code, and then I just went through the list, looking up, see if I could find contact online. And then some of the businesses are in our zip code, but far from the city, so I removed those. So this is as good as I can get right now for a list of active businesses registered to Casson.
Do you wanna add me to the list?
I
I didn't make it.
No.
Well,
Almost good.
Well.
I mean.
If you want more information.
Yeah, no, I'll add you to the list, cause I noticed some of them weren't on the list,
I was just curious how it didn't show
Well,
up.
so
all
like
that-
the.
Are you a business?
I just realized like the hotel in town didn't make the list because the owner's registered in Owatonna, so.
Right.
Kind of fascinating, really. You wouldn't necessarily think you'd see this many, you know, we don't drive
Well,
around and see this many, you know.
Me too, I was reading through them and I'm like, really, wow,
Some you never heard of.
right,
Yeah, and summer services I didn't know were offered in,
right.
and a lot of them, you know, there's a local DJ company, but, you know, they're not just
Oh,
working
it's
in
been around
Casson.
forever. Yeah.
There's a drone photography company that does music festivals. So, you know, if we were to make our own drone video, Casson, to market it, you know, there's a local business that we could possibly contract.
Right. Quite a list.
Big challenge for the chamber to get all these members.
Agreed.
How many members does the chamber have?
72.
That's about
Only 250 to go.
Yeah.
30 years ago.
We'll have
a little bit more than a quarter of the list anyway, or a
And
little
some
bit
of
less
these,
than a quarter.
you know, some of these might be shell corporations, like, you'll notice there's Rufus 1, Rufus 2, Rufus 3, and that might be for different subdivisions.
And then some of them are listed twice too.
Yeah.
You get the churches into the chamber?
Like 6 and 11 is the same.
They're
Okay.
able to join, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we have,
Do you think that's
uh,
All right.
couple.
So.
I know we did like a discounted membership for them usually.
Yeah.
It's nice to just get them in there, and if they want to advertise something for the, bring out the.
Not signed up for it.
Move on to what we got next? Was that all you had, Nicholas, or is there any more?
Yeah, that's the coordinator's report, and I didn't know if, the EDA was ready to revisit strategic planning yet, or just, you know, move forward with the survey of residential businesses.
Yes, I think what Nicholas was sort of alluding to, and maybe he didn't come out right out and ask it, is that he'd like to send these letters out to these folks for this co-working space. So he's looking for authorization to spend up to $100 on sending out mailings in essence. So, I know you were kind of talking about it, but maybe just going straight to the point with it would be good. Everybody's looking for
I would
it.
make that motion to go ahead and
Okay,
send that survey out to them and see.
and I can adapt it too, so that it's not just focusing on a co-working space, but what are your business space needs?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I would second that.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. We'll move next to, well, city administrator's report.
Well, you've got that there. I included that because there are a couple items in there you can just take a look at. I'm gonna try and do that going forward and put my report in every one of them. One of them in particular that I wanted to highlight there on page 40, looks like 42 or 44 here. Got two different page numbers on my thing. Is the coronavirus. So the CARES Act relief was finally sent down, and will be sent down to the cities, the executive order from the governors, and allocate that money, and the city of Casson will be allocated about $490,000, and a lot of that money will be soaked up by expenditures the city already had for cleaning supplies and other technical upgrades that are going to be necessary to help serve our residents better. But there is a possibility that we could utilize some of that money for EDA related activities, and so I wanted to just touch base with the board today and see what you would be interested in doing. Some of the things that you talked about in particular in your email, Tom, would be things I think we could definitely classify as COVID related because of the business interruption aspect of it. So bringing a speaker in and saying, hey, you know, it's going to be $1,000, and you know, as long as the city council and the EDA, the responsible authority, designates that as COVID expense, then it qualifies. So that would be something that I would certainly be interested in doing. Same thing with advertising. You know, if we felt like that was you know, if obviously businesses have been impacted, you know, and people don't necessarily know what's open, what isn't, what hours are, what hours aren't. You know, we could use some of those monies even for advertising. I think that would be able to be classed as COVID-related expenses. I know Dodge County has a substantial amount of money that I think $2.5 million is the amount they receive, and counties are actually required to use a certain percentage of their money on EDA.
Well, that's being waived.
Is it being waived?
But the
Okay.
situation with that is the county will look to pay off their own expenses first, you know, for computers bought, PPE costs, but they would like to spend as much of the money as possible in Dodge County. I guess whatever is left over they want to use towards economic assistance, which I'm assuming will be a large chunk of money. The issue that the county is running into is that since this is federal money, the stipulations that the county has to follow, whoever they subgrant the funds to, they have to follow the stipulations as well. So we might have money for, you know, COVID costs. So a business can apply for a COVID grant based on the costs of like PPE, maybe lost, you know, salary costs, additional salary costs, but lost income from COVID, I don't think is one of those eligible costs. And what also might factor in is whether you've received PPP from the federal government. So are you eligible for CARES Act funds, or are you only eligible for a certain amount of CARES Act funds based on your loan size? So we're definitely sorting through all of that right now, but the kind of major thing that everybody, you know, at CEDA and other cities and counties are looking at is how can we use as much of this money as possible, and what are the eligible costs? And that's kind of what we're sorting through right now. I know CEDA's working with Houston County. They might be working with Dodge County to act as a consultant to help disperse these funds. So, I mean, the more that we learn, the more that we can know exactly what we can do with these funds.
So right now, should we be kind of thinking about where some of the most urgent needs from a business or economic development standpoint then? Or should we just wait to learn more?
Well, I mean, that is the issue. You know, I'd love to get the money put to work. We haven't received it yet. We should get our disbursement on the 26th. That's what it's scheduled to do for right now, and we'll receive it electronically. And setting a target of how much of it the city council is willing to allocate towards economic development is another question for us locally. Obviously, at the county level, they have a greater level of funding, so they should have money available as well, but they also have to cover a larger area. Some of that money, and that's kind of why I brought up like advertising and things like that. Some of the stuff the city could do on behalf, and it would have less, I think, strings attached. Because I can definitely say, well, this was related to COVID. Whereas if your business is requesting $5,000, are you really gonna want to fill out the paperwork? And are we gonna be the ones checking the paperwork for the next 5 years for that $5,000 you got? That may be what's required, and it may be such that some businesses say, I'm not that interested in it. You know, usually when you get money from the government, it comes with strings attached.
Right.
I think everyone understands that, unfortunately. But at the same time, I don't want to necessarily send Governor Walz the money back, because the state will just keep it then. I mean, they've had this money since January. I'm not sure what, they had the, you know, whatever $1 billion they've had, it's been sitting in an interest account. I'm not sure exactly how that all works at the state government, but I'm sure it's very legal. You know, and no one's taking advantage of that. But I mean, I'm just hesitant to send anything back if we can try to use it here, because I think in the fullness of time, the federal government isn't really gonna care. I mean, it's the states that are gonna have to inspect. And is the state government really gonna send somebody down to every little city and check every single expense and make sure that it was exactly right? You know, I doubt it, because that tends not to be what ends up happening. You know, we're gonna do our best effort to make sure that it's COVID related. If we can make that case that's COVID related, I feel like it should be covered.
And, just to add on to that, like, one thing that they were discussing at the county is like, if it's in your budget, it's likely not a COVID expense, but something like if we did classes for businesses, like, you know, better financial management during the COVID crisis, that's not something in the budget right now, but it's something that's a benefit and a COVID cost to the businesses and Caston. So that might be something eligible for CARES Act funds. So you can be a little more creative, but it's, yeah, right now I'm just trying to find the League of Minnesota Cities link, because I know they're working with the state people who got those funds to figure out, you know, what's the most we can do with these.
It'd be interesting to find out if they're gonna do any waivers for loss of income is not a COVID expense. Well, if you were a bar, restaurant, hair salon, nail salon, it was completely closed for 90 days, loss of income is a COVID expense.
Right.
I mean, in the PPP, all the good it was for most of those folks, they're just now bringing people back, so they haven't realized the full effect of.
Right, I mean,
once you go
right now,
back
the information I have is it's not supposed to be an income substitution, but it's possible that some of those could be waived. I
Not
don't
even
know.
necessarily income substitution, but if I was closed for 90 days in a restaurant, PPP did not cover everything that I had for rent, utilities, insurance.
No, not even close.
You know, PPP covered some.
Yeah.
The most, some, I know 2 restaurants off the top of my head that we work with that PPP didn't cover half of what their actual.
Well, right, and
cost
that's why, I mean, I tend to take a little bit more creative approach towards the use of the funds. I know Nicholas he's the lawgiver, you know, which is good, because that's his job. I tend to take a little bit more creative approach, because I think there are ways we could utilize this. Even if it were like a zero, I mean, I'd love to be able to throw it into a 0% interest, you know, loan program or something, where somebody could just get the money and they would make sure that they're doing okay this year, because it's a matter of, you've brought up before, I know, what's next year gonna look like? You know, once the unemployment benefits start to creep down, spending's probably gonna go down overall for consumers. You know, you could see a real tightening in the fall, and you know, we don't know what that's gonna be.
Could we offer everybody, I'm just wondering if there's so I'm thinking of a concept similar to, you know, like they did the stimulus, like the feds did the stimulus check, but if we did that more with like, we'll pay up to a certain amount of your water, sewer.
Well, so, and that
bills
was
or
what I
something.
thought of too, and I've asked that question, so I haven't had an answer back. My question was, what about like utility credit?
Yeah.
Because, you know, everyone's gonna have a utility bill, and I can't necessarily go back and pay your bill from last month.
Right.
But I can say, well, I can give every so many businesses a $500 credit on utility bills, which will be a real cash benefit to them going
Right.
forward. And they're gonna use it because they're gonna need to use it to operate.
So-
So we know that everybody, that's gonna be,
Here's just like a quick blurb from the LMC. If you transfer any funds to other local units of government or award grants or loans to business entities, you must ensure they follow the same federal requirements you are subject to, and you are responsible for the subrecipient monitoring regulations under uniform grant guidance. And that's why the county's looking at like a consultant, because like that's kind of beyond me.
Is
Just to
the-
monitor
But is
subrecipient.
the subrecipient then the utility? Cause they're the ones actually getting the money, we're just turning around and offering their account's been paid on behalf of the money that's gone to them, so then the subrecipient
I mean,
charges
that
the
possibly
utility.
might work. I mean, they're still looking at the fine grain guidelines for this, but that's kind of like, that's what they said as far, like, so far, that's as much as we kind of really know. And so, we're still sorting this out, at CEDA and at the county, to figuring out.
I mean, the nice thing is, once a model is established that's viable,
Mhm.
whether it's Houston County or Dodge County or something like that, we should be able to utilize those same guidelines, you know? And if we're all wrong, we're all wrong, I guess. The state can come down and crack the whip on Dodge County too. The likelihood is pretty low that they'll do that. So we'll feel more comfortable about being able to follow kind of in that line. Whereas if we go out on a ledge and say, hey, we're gonna give everybody $500 on a utility bill, they might come back and say, well, that wasn't appropriate. We don't know, so, if that makes sense.
That doesn't make any
It's still
sense.
kinda early. What's that?
You might say that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I think it would be, you know, the nice thing is that in that situation, you'd have a nice paper trail, and the documentation wouldn't be very difficult. Whereas in all these other formats, if we gave somebody cash, I mean, the documentation's gonna be zero, so, right.
Yeah, you know, as far as, you know, hiring consultants and people come in and speak, like you said before about, you know, financial management during COVID-19. Well, if I'm a bar owner or a hair salon,
Right.
those kind of, that's great, I'd love to manage my cash, but I don't have it.
Mhm.
Yep.
You know, so I don't know.
Well, I guess the
Maybe
reason we
you
brought
could
that up is
offer-
we know that that's an expense we could use it for. That's like
Right.
an easy sell. Like, all you gotta do is throw, during the COVID crisis, into whatever you do, and all, you know, it's
But
gonna qualify.
every business is gonna be different, I mean.
Right.
It would
Not
take.
every business is affected by
Right,
COVID.
that's what I mean, everyone would be affected at a different amount, so it would kinda.
Go back to another survey almost, if we were gonna do a utility
Yeah.
credit, do you need a utility credit?
Well,
I would say no.
The
Yeah.
way I would phrase it is, just to make use of the money, is basically say, well, as a utility, we've seen a reduced amount of operations because some businesses have been closed down or whatever, and then you basically pay it, and then you turn around and offer a credit.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a matter of, we're gonna have more information,
Oh,
we'll
right.
have more information at our next meeting.
Yeah,
This
let's-
is preliminary, it's easy to get bogged down, I don't know
Right,
the answers
so
to a lot of these
let's
questions,
kinda
so.
put it on hold until next meeting, and we have a lot more information and more ideas.
And if Nicholas gets something ahead of that meeting, we'll get it out to you as well, if there's something definitive, or
Right.
if the county says, hey, yep, this is what we're gonna do, that'll give us some guidance too, so.
Is there a,
I'd like to have something that come out that's not broad, but specific.
Well, it's government, it's not gonna be specific, I'm sorry.
Let's try to do better.
Well, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
can we do COVID open, businesses open signage that if we maybe would be able to carry over to next year when the Main Street's hard to access?
And that's kinda why I brought that up, is I think there's gotta be some ways we can utilize this appropriately that might be able to use those again, yeah. Same thing with maybe even prepaying for some of the advertising or something like that, I don't know, you know.
We'll add that to next meeting, if you get any more information.
Yeah.
With more guidance, send it out. Was that all you had there, Tim, for your?
Yeah, that's what I've got, that, you know.
As far as other business as well, I haven't had any board seat applicants. I reached out to one person, but, maybe I'll give them a call, see, just hear from them in person. But if you meet anybody who's interested in the open board seat, you can get them in touch with me. The application's available online as well, so.
Any other items we wanna add to August other than the CARES and your survey
Yeah,
results?
you're right.
And if nobody's got nothing now, feel.
Since Dodge Center is bringing in 50 jobs with their big grant that they've received for infrastructure, can we sort of push for housing? Because those people are gonna live somewhere. And if we don't have the business coming in here, maybe we could at least have their employees.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good, I guess I'm not sure exactly push for housing in terms of like, what are we looking at encouraging? I mean, I know that was one of the issues that was brought up during our, priority setting is additional housing and how involved does the EDA wanna get into the housing market? I know that there are a number of subdivisions that are coming on in the next year, the South Point subdivision's gonna come on, and Big Old Void 8 will come on. I know, Mr. Thompson's looking at moving forward with townhomes in his area. Like, so you're talking about like, taking like city land and marketing it for housing, or what are you thinking of?
I'm just thinking that we're 5 miles from Dodge Center, and we need to take advantage of the fact that they're going to be expanding in their business area with money from the state.
Mm-hmm.
So.
We can definitely let them know there's available housing or available lots.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm sure Dodge Center's definitely gonna be pushing for them to build there too.
Oh, I'm sure.
But it doesn't hurt to at least put a word
once
out
again,
there.
coming back down to advertising,
Yeah.
possibly in local newspapers, radio, billboards, that kind of thing, like make cash in your home, that kind of a thing,
Yep.
definitely something I'd be interested in doing, because I think we've got a good product, it's a matter of we need to market it better sometimes.
Yeah.
All right, being that, I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Third.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Can you send an email?
You want the good and bad?
Everybody else,
Yeah, I will do that. I have a meeting at 1, so I'll do it when I
Thank you.
get
Thank you.
back up to it. For sure, actually, one of them.
Yeah, I was gonna say, do you still have my email?
I should.
I just thought.
I'll grab
too much
that.
like
Yeah,
about
here,
the-
you-
The liquor law as far as the ice arena goes.
Mm-hmm.
Being
Do you want, like, a
youth,
digital
board
copy,
member
or-
for the hockey.
I was gonna.
We have enough issues
Can't
with
find it
sober
right
cars.
away. My friend is-
We don't have any.
Can't find it.
During high school?
Well, you can't miss or say high school.
Oh, thank God.
No.
Yeah.
Probably not during the high
Then you're
school so much,
local.
but.
But you go to a game, our youth game.
Your youth team's
Well,
fine.
yeah.
We don't
We
have
can't afford to
a,
lose
we
money
don't
over
have
it.
a semi-show
Thank you.
anymore.
We're-
They relocated.
I thought it was.
Well, then they
That
shut
lasted
the door
for
in the
years.
rain, and I hope so this
Because-
afternoon.
Mostly because cause I walk up around there all the time.
Are those sidewalks?
Well, the sidewalk comes up to right here right now, and there's about this much, probably about this much space where it's just super long grass, and then it's the trail. So it's like, probably like about 3 feet,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm always kinda like, and then right here by the church, there's about another 3 feet where it's just grass. It's like sidewalk up to or trail up to sidewalk, but it's like 3 feet of grass just kinda right there in between them. It's just like, they both just end 3 feet away from each other. And I was kinda like, I don't know what we're like, is there like something that needs to happen in order for those to connect, or? CS Bank.
Yeah,
Like
it's
Citizen
a-
State Bank. Oh, MN.
Really a question for Brandon too.
Right.
And I imagine it's like these houses get.
Yeah, these houses are built, like this is just not map, like there's a house here now
Yeah,
too.
okay.
And so like the sidewalk's all the way up, but then there just doesn't, I was kinda like, I don't know what we're waiting for. And then right here too, there's a little concrete pad that I assume must be for a bench or something, but it's just kinda this random, like you're going on the sidewalk and then there's like a concrete pad with like
Yeah.
rocks kind of around it.
See that.
And I thought, I was like, is that a bench? So let's do
Maybe
it
they
to-
were thinking of putting like a centralized mailbox there for
yeah,
the development.
maybe. I mean, it's the kind of shape of a bench, shape and size of a bench.
Yeah.
So I just thought,
Yeah,
anyways,
probably,
I
I can ask Brandon about that
Yeah.
next time I see him.
it was
Some
yeah,
quirks.
less to do with the grant award, and I saw it 'cause it's in that same exact area, and I was
Yeah.
kinda like,
Yeah, that
oh
is-
yeah, are we gonna
weird.
finish these little gaps, or? See you later. So, I was gonna. So I was just planning to mention it to
Yeah, no, I haven't really walked around there, so.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like I live by there, so I walk
I mean, if
by.
it means just like filling in like 3 feet of concrete, I'm sure the city can
Figure it out.
figure that out.
Great,